All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started? My name is Dustin Thompson. I am the Volunteer and Community Outreach Coordinator. And with me today is Airiél Peoples from Bright Spot Farm. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Airiél. I'm, as Dustin said, I work with Bright Spot. I'm the Agricultural Education Coordinator. And I actually moved out here from Colorado about 3 years ago and kind of fell into this place. So yeah, I do lots of things.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about, why don't we start out with a little bit about Bright Spot Farms and maybe what some of the programs are that you have going on right now?
Yeah, so Bright Spot Farms, Bright Spot Farms has actually been around for, I think, about 5 years. No, I'm sorry, longer. Dates are longer than that. I think it actually started in 2011 as a bookstore. We're a farm of West End neighborhood house. And while we started off as a bookstore, Amazon came, and you can imagine that was not very successful. And so Bright Spots decided, we want to have a mission of employing young adults in the community, particularly adults who are at risk and may have a more difficult time entering the workforce. So why don't we switch it up? So then it turned from a bookstore into a farm. And we started farming on, I think, about like 2 plots in Rodney Reservoir. And we worked with youth 18 to 24. We would employ about 5 to 6 youth at a time at that point. And then people started to hear about us, so we expanded. We actually ended up moving out to Newcastle. So we're actually located off of 13 behind the old state hospital, where we expanded from having, 2 plots at Rodney Reservoir to actually farming on 2 acres. We grow over 500 varieties of vegetables. And we also grow ornamental flowers in the spring and fall. And not only that, but we expanded our program to not just work with young adults 18 to 24, but we also work with high school students. And even more recently, so high school and middle school. So we work with youth 14 to 18. And even more recently, we've decided to really hone in on that 14 to 18 age group, focusing on all aspects of agriculture, from landscaping to ornamental flowers to like the complete cultivation of food. So that's a little
that's quite an evolution.
It's wild. Yeah.
Great. So the farm is, we've had some conversations offline before this. So the farm, it seems, is really about, urban gardening and getting people in the city, and as you said, particularly young people more so recently, to get involved with agriculture and knowing more about where their food comes from, which I think is, I feel like in some communities, it's probably shifting back to a little bit more during the COVID times, of back to preparing food and like being a little bit more connected, but still in a lot of communities, and there is a big detachment on what we eat versus the kind of the reality of food, and all that's involved there. So what do you feel like why do you think that this connection is so important?
I think that one of the most important things you can know is about, how can I say this? Farming and growing food gives us the skill set to deal with anything in life. We live in a culture of immediate gratification. If I want a burger, I can just go and get it. Heck, I don't even have to go and get it anymore. Now we have people delivering entire meals to our houses. You turn on the television, you can get anything you want at your fingertips. And when it comes to the cultivation of food, you cannot do that. It takes patience, it takes hard work, and it takes consistency. And these are all the things that you need in life to succeed anywhere. When I really think about particularly working with young people in this space, I think that we like to say that we're growing personally and professionally, right? And so they're gaining these little skill sets of like, oh shoot, like everything's not going to happen right away. And if I want to see the end product of this, I have to continue and work through it. I have to be consistent. I have to come in even on those days when I'm hot and I'm tired and I don't feel like it. And then at the end of it, they get to reap this wonderful reward. I think that's the cultivation of food has something to teach all of us, because it's really a way that we build community. When we really think about it, we have very deep emotional connections to food. The things that we prepare at home, when you give somebody some fresh vegetables, or when you're making a dish and you're passing that out, you're creating community. And so I feel that this is just a snapshot, an experience that youth can get and taking forward with them anywhere they go. And that's really our goal, right? Our goal is to give them the foundations of growing food, and also leadership skills, outreach, and they're going to take that and they're going to bring it into their community, because nothing that we do here should stay here, right? We say what you learn here leaves here. That's the whole point.
So, yeah. So do you feel is that some of the feedback that you get when people have kind of gone through the farm, that they bring that back to you, that they've had kind of an increased sense of community and kind of...
Oh, yeah. It's
some of the stories you hear afterwards have got to be pretty great.
They're amazing. That is actually the reason I've been here for 3 seasons. And that's one of the things that keeps me coming back. What I love most, you get a 14-year-old kid who comes here their first summer. It's hot. They're working outside. They're showing up at 8 a.m. weeding. Their first summer, they're like, I'm never coming back here. This is rough. Who can do this? Nobody can do this. And then they return. And they come back, and every time you see a growth. And they say, you know what, Airiél, I came back because that was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I've never felt more accomplished in my life, right? And every season, they grow a little bit more. So we do a thing called peer-to-peer leadership, where you start off as a youth crew, and as you grow in our program, you have the opportunity to lead your peers, right? And so they're taking on more responsibility. So this has like that example of that youth who comes in the first year who's like, I would never, and then comes back the second year and he's like, whoa, I really like kohlrabi. I didn't even know that I could grow carrots in the fall. I love eating food right out of the dirt because it's grown organically, and I know what that means, right? So maybe their second year, they're learning more about science. They're learning more about botany. And then maybe the third year, they're leading their own crew of 3 to 4 students. And it's such a beautiful succession that you see, right? You see, we actually just graduated some youth that were with us from 14 to 18. And it was amazing. It was just amazing to see how many ways that they've expanded and the things that they've taken here and done in their own community. They started putting up garden plots for people in their backyard of their own volition. They would just do that. I was
going to ask, do you start seeing other gardens kind of popping up after they go through?
Yeah. They actually, a a couple of our youth had did an info session with family members and community members in North Wilmington on how to, container garden. We had another youth who, after like many seasons with us, I want to say like about 3 seasons with us, was like, you know what? I'm really interested in herbal plants. I really want to know more about how herbs help the body. And she actually ended up teaching body butter classes and herbal remedy classes throughout the city at different community centers. So yeah, so like a lot of times we'll have youth who completely change tracks. Like we've had youth who are like, I think I want to be a nurse. And by the end of it, they want to be farmers. They want to be zoologists. We've had some people change to being veterinarians.
Wow.
Yeah.
The
list goes on and on. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. So, I mean, dealing with, if your farm and its mission is centered around dealing with at-risk youth, there has to be a lot of trauma that can come into play as well. And so I know, again, you and I have had a number of conversations, often kind of get sidetracked into Star Trek, but they generally start with this farm and its mission. And one of the things that you discussed that kind of I never thought about was not just the trauma of everyday life, but the trauma of history around agriculture and how that plays a huge role in what you do at the farm. And so I'd love if you could just kind of talk about your experience with that and that whole mindset.
Yeah. We have a unique thing that we do here, because we're not just some employment program. We hone in on that personal growth, right? And in honing in on that personal growth, you have to talk about trauma and you have to talk about history. Overwhelmingly, Bright Spot has worked with Black and Brown youth. Black and Brown youth, particularly, do not tend to inhabit like the sciences or agriculture very much at all. And a lot of that has to do with the traumatic history that we have had in this country. Okay? They've experimented on our bodies. They've, we still don't have an equal healthcare system. We've experienced genocide. We've experienced slavery, right? And those things are passed down through generations. So we deal a lot with intergenerational trauma. So one of the things that me and you, Dustin, were talking about that I feel really strongly about is you cannot expect these youth to be successful in this field unless you're talking about and dealing with the issues that have been, right? Because particularly, like, let's talk about the indigenous peoples of this country. They experienced immense amount, not only were they physically moved from their homeland, but in the process of that, experiencing a lot of genocide, losing their stories, losing language, losing food, right? And through that process, farming and agriculture began to be seen as something backwards. It's not worthy of my attention. It's not worthy of doing that. I want to be I want to be a nurse. I want to be a doctor. I want to be something that isn't physical. And I'm gonna also add on, particularly with Black folks in America, we have a very entrenched trauma surrounding slavery. Want to know why you don't usually see Black folks talking about environmental issues? That is because we have an intense disposition to move away from nature. That we were called backwards. We were called weak. We were called stupid for engaging in things of the natural world. So as time progressed, it was seen as civilized to not do that. So when we deal with our youth, when our youth come to our farm, we unpack a lot of those historical traumas. We talk about Lenape, indigenous people of this area. We talk about their history. We talk about slavery. We also talk about the inequalities that have existed within the agricultural field and still do. And then we talk about your place in it, right? Just because it has happened, we have a unique opportunity to instill our youth with this concept and this idea of changing what is. But you can't change what is if you don't know what has been, right? And so, like, I just want to say that I couldn't tell you how many times we would have youth who would come to our farm and say, "This is some slave work," and be ashamed to even tell anybody that they worked at a farm. They refused to tell anybody that they were doing agricultural work or that they worked at a farm because it was seen as such less than, nothing that is worthy of being proud of, right? But as they learn their history, our country's history, and grow within themselves, they start to see, whoa, I got this backwards. This isn't something to be ashamed of. I'm learning something that could potentially change the trajectory of my entire family, of my entire community. I'm learning the foundation of what it takes to live in this world. I know how to grow food. I know how to build a structure. I know how to work. That's huge. That is something to be proud of. Wow, and not only do I know how to do all these things, but man, I know the history of it. I know why we moved away from it, why people might be ashamed of it. And so I know how to talk about that in an articulate way, right? Because again, everything that we are instilling in our youth, we want them to take that into the community and educate others. I don't want to hear, yo, this is slave work at the end of a season at Bright Spots. At the end of a season at Bright Spots, our youth are saying, yo, this is lit. This is the real work. This is the real work. Because this is how you build communities. This is how you change the future, and not just in a topical way.
It's very powerful. I mean, you're creating life, creating food that can help sustain your community, while also, as you're pointing out very eloquently, learning skills of life and just patience, work, and really kind of getting into the mindset, the evolution of a process, which is really important, because it is really hard, I think, in today's Amazon click to buy, instant gratification world. It is really hard to get into that mindset of the evolutional process. You want results instantly, and you want at least something to show for your work instantly. And that's just not always the way it happens. It's sometimes, particularly in growing food, it can take weeks or longer before you even know that you screwed up or not, right? Before you even see the little sprout come up and say, hey, how you doing? It can take a while. So I really appreciate the value in that. I think my internet may have glitched out. Can everybody hear me? All right, I'm seeing other people move. Airiél, are you still with us? I think we may have lost our guest. All right, we'll pause for a second. Where's the little lines on the screens that says technical difficulties? We gotta get that still frame up. Let's send her an invite to come back here. Back, there we are. All right. I was saying we
Back
got
on the farm. Everything doesn't work exactly right.
that technical difficulty thing where you have like the bars of different colors, and then we can get back.
Yeah, sorry guys.
No problem. So I was just saying I appreciate the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I want to expand on that and say, as a part of our program, youth go out into the community and teach classes. So we directly encourage them to take that into the community. So we've had youth teach entire nutrition classes to younger children 5 to 10 years old. We've had youth teach body butter and herbal making. We've done canning classes in the community. We've had youth teach classes on the history of agriculture within the African American community. We've had an entire, we're growing for seed. And so we've had youth teach classes on indigenous seed and the importance of seed preservation. So we really,
an amazing litany of classes.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's all about what they want. It's centered around what they want. Right? So they come here and they're exposed to a plethora of things. And then I come and I say, what interests you? What is something that you want to expand on and learn about? And then I coach them and I help them through that process so that at the end of 3 weeks, they're prepared to go into the community in the fall and teach their own classes. So the idea again is like to have a direct impact on their community.
So do some people just kind of keep doing that and just keep teaching and keep growing in terms of educating communities?
That is exactly what happens. Again, I'm going to go back to our graduating seniors. The youth that was teaching family members and community members in North Philly how to do container gardening, I mean, he had already done a presentation and a class on how to start a container garden. He just loved it and was like, yo, like I got to do this again. This is important, right? And so he just kept on with those classes. And he's actually going to Del Tech and still teaching those classes in his community, to be honest. So yeah, we do see a lot of times youth just continue on with teaching classes or informing people in a way that feels genuine to them. I had another student, she was really into nutrition. And while she taught classes in the community centering around nutrition, what she actually ended up doing was really just starting to cook her own meals a lot more and then pass out those meals to family members.
Mm.
So every student kind of grows and expands on what they learned here in a way that feels right to them. We don't press a certain way that should look, because I don't feel like there's one way to have an impact on your community. I don't think that there's one way to be a leader. So I'm not going to push that. I'm going to learn who you are as an individual and then walk you through by gaining strength in whatever it is you need to gain strength in.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing in general, just period, end of statement. But also it's amazing that it all at the farm, it starts with putting your hands in the dirt and growing things. I mean, yeah. And then from that, the growth and evolution of just each individual. I mean, that's phenomenal.
It's beautiful. I loved
got to be one of the best jobs.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you some numbers, let's see, this past, we teamed up with Christiana and St. Francis to distribute shares to needy families in the community. This summer, we fed 43 needy families, and then we have, I think, 18 CSA shares. And then we also we teamed up with Conscious Connections in North Philly to do additional food distribution and community outreach just this summer. So yeah.
So do you utilize would you say you utilize a lot of what you grow at the farm to give back, giving back to the communities? Is that where a lot of the product ends up?
Yeah. So we're just a small urban farm. A lot of the ways that we pay youth is usually through grants. And as far as where the food goes, the food is, again, we teamed up with St. Francis, who nailed down needy families, and we directly support them. And giving fresh produce. So we gave like kale, onions, carrots, and then on top of that, we facilitated cooking classes so that people actually know what to do with that food. A lot of our food, because we're little guys, a lot of our food goes directly into Wilmington, Newcastle area, and it actually, the way that it happens is it's made possible by people like you who just hear about us either through word of mouth or on social media, and decide that they want to get involved because all of our produce is cultivated by youth. It's from the start to the finish, it's them. We're there to guide, we're there to help, but this is their farm, this is their community, this is for them.
So we had a couple of comments. So take a break for a moment here. So one of the questions related to the different varieties of food that you mentioned, which they were impressed. Beth was impressed by the number of varieties that you have. But she's curious on what would you say are some of the more unusual things that you do grow there on the farm?
So we just got a Mayan okra that we're growing for seed. We grow kohlrabi. Honestly, I'd never even heard of kohlrabi until a year ago. But a lot of the youth, like, they've never seen it before. We grow about four different varieties of peppers. We're growing a toboggan pepper. And we're also growing a pepper that is from Trinidad specifically. So yeah, I think most of the things that we do are pretty generic, except for the Lenape mung bean that we're currently growing. I think that's the most unique variety that I've seen.
Do you guys do tours of the farm there?
All the time. Come on down. Yeah. Yeah, we do tours. We invite people to walk in the winter. So obviously farming has a season, right? That season ends in the fall. And right now we sell poinsettias. So from the fall all the way through the winter, we're selling poinsettias. And so we definitely invite people to come and see the farm and the greenhouse, where we also do ornamental flowers.
Yeah. Are you guys, so you guys are completely organic at the farm?
We are. So while we can't completely claim organic because we're not certified, there's certain certifications that you have to go through to label yourself as an organic farm. And it's also kind of an expensive process that we just don't have the finances to do. When deciding where money should go, we put most of our money into programming, because programming is what directly impacts youth. And so that tends to take a precedent over a lot of other things.
Yeah.
So while we aren't a certified organic farm, we do grow all naturally. We do not use pesticides or chemicals in anything that we do.
So we had somebody that had a great comment in the comment thread. So I'm actually going to do something that we don't usually do, but I'm actually going to ask her to unmute and to chime in and bring this conversation here to the forefront. I think she wants to engage with you also a little bit, even offline. But I'm going to turn it over to Mary for a second to touch base on that.
Hi, Airiél. I'm a Jewish educator in the community here in Delaware, and one of the things that struck me was you saying that, oh, we've gotten away from agriculture and agrarian society because, oh, that's slave jobs, that's, looked down upon in society. And that's something that's happened in the Jewish community also, in that as a people, we started out as an agrarian society. A lot of our holidays are agrarian based. But, if you look at, Jews in America now, or even around the world, where nobody's farming, nobody's shepherds anymore, nobody's working the land. And we have to explain all of this agricultural history in Hebrew school to our kids so that they can understand the holidays. And because it's like, oh yeah, this is a harvest holiday because the wheat only grows this part of the year. And, and it's this whole thing where it's knowledge that's been lost. And what I was looking for is I said, wow, here's another group of people with the same kind of, lost knowledge, shared cultural, the shunning of it, of the, oh, society looks down upon it, so we're giving up some of our history. I was just thinking, a collaboration, like, could we work together to teach the kids the, the knowledge they're missing?
Yeah. You want to know something else that I find really interesting too is we participate in these ceremonies without even realizing it. So one of the biggest crops that we grow collard greens, right? And I've always been struck by how many times I will have kids raise their hands if they've ever eaten collards, right? And overwhelmingly they're like, me, but never actually seen what that plant looks like, right? And then talk about the history of it. So particularly in my culture, right, we eat collard greens. You eat collard greens and black eyed peas on New Year's. There is symbolism in all of that, right? The green is for the land, right? The red is for the blood that we've shed on our land. And then you always have gold, which is the sun, because historically, right, Africans worship the sun. And then we have black in our black eyed peas. It's also a meal that is eaten in West Africa. And it's always just this really, also like a really interesting thing that we participate in these ceremonies, and we actually, without even realizing it, our existence is really centered around agriculture and food. And that's one of the things that I super love to teach and talk about as well, is like unpacking that. How are you actually participating in this in a ceremonious way and you don't even realize it, right? And just to watch the light bulbs go on, because then you have people coming in and being like, oh, wow, in Puerto Rico, we make these pies, and then like we do this. Oh, my mom's Jamaican, and in Jamaica, we eat these specific kinds of peppers. The stories that start to come out, because inherently, I think we're connected to food. We just, as you said, we just have lost our understanding of that connection, right? And so it's just so, and I think, along with all of the work ethic and all of that, I think farming teaches us more about ourselves. What can we do? What can we learn? Who are we? And what are the traditions that we have, that we participate in, and maybe we didn't even realize, and are finding that are really, really important in making us who we are today. Okay?
So I think it's so important to rebuild that connection to our food and to our environment and our culture. And I was actually talking with Chief Coker at the Lenape, from the Lenape tribe here in Delaware, and we talked a lot about the importance of understanding your own familial or cultural history. And we're going to talk. He's coming on, which I'm so like I can't wait. But we're going to talk about that. But I think it's so important to do that. One thing I will say that is I think we're having to find a balance between understanding our own history, our own culture, and the significance of food and environment within that framework, and also recognizing the history and culture in others. And you can appreciate that without, what I don't like to see is people co-opting culture and history, which I think people have a bad habit of doing, and then misrepresenting it as well. That happens, I feel like, a lot in Native culture. People co-opt Native culture, Native American culture, and actually do a very much a disservice to it. They don't, you see that also in the Buddhist culture as well, people co-opting Buddhist culture. So how do you think we can kind of rebuild our relationship between ourselves and our food and nature and our cultures without doing that, but in the world in general?
I think we learn more about ourselves. Agriculture, farming. Farming has this amazing way of making you appreciate who you are. I didn't say this at the beginning. I said I'm from Colorado. I am Black, but I'm also Native American. I went to an all Native American college in Southwest Colorado. And one of the most profound things that I found myself learning and doing was growing corn. And as I grew corn, it wasn't a thing where I was focusing on being, I'm Lakota. So it wasn't a thing that I was like focusing on being Lakota Sioux. Like I was focusing on, oh man, like I'm just trying to grow this food so I can figure out how to make some cornmeal. Actually, I wanted to make cornbread, I'll be honest. But through the process of growing that corn and working, I really started to dive more into my Native side, which actually revealed more about my Black side and who I am holistically as a person. So circling back to your question, I think that when you are working, because you can't fake farming, all right? You can't, there's no faking that. You are working in all
You can't come in at
conditions.
night and like plant whole grown lettuce in the ground.
No. And what you find as you're working like that is that all pretenses fall to the side. I might come in and being like, I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna be Native, I'm gonna be Indigenous, I'm gonna be pretty and grow sweet corn. That's what we're doing, right? But when you, after 3 weeks of working in the hot sun in that field, that all goes to the side. None of that matters. You're just like, I'm literally just trying to make it through today, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck this food is so that I can go ahead and distribute it to whomever it needs to go to. It's so bare bones, right? And it strips you. It strips you of, I think we live in a culture where we're expected to fake it, right? Fake it till you make it. We aren't genuine. I think it's difficult to be genuine. It's difficult to figure out who you are and what you are. But again, when you're working hard, all that is gone. And you are left with yourself. I feel that the way that we stop the co-option of cultures, at least in the agricultural sense, is we're genuine in the work that we do. So at the end of the day, at the end of 3 weeks, right, I'm checking in and I'm saying, how are you doing? How are you doing as a person? How are you feeling right now? What are some things that you've learned about yourself in this environment? I think we've had students who may have come in identifying as nothing at all, And at the end of a session, they're talking about their Airiél lineage. Okay? We've had students who have come in and really been more affiliated or interested in African American culture. And by the end of it, they're really wanting to know more about Scottish agricultural practices. Because again, that kind of work strips, you gotta be real. It strips you of all those pretenses. And I think actively having honest conversations in the field, off the field, working hard, those are the things that I have seen that really have helped get down to who we are as people. Because I think a lot of cultural appropriation comes from people not feeling like they have a culture. And when you are working in ag, you realize, oh crap, because this is the foundation of human existence. Like, we have always grown food. So you're gonna find your culture here, whatever that is, whatever that looks like. Yeah.
Amazing.
I hope that answers the question.
Yes, and some. I feel like all of your answers answer the question, but then and some. That's why I love our conversations.
Yeah,
So,
right.
how can people support the farm? What can people do to help its mission?
One of the biggest things that you can do is become a CSA member. CSA is Community Supported Agriculture. You pay a lump sum at the beginning of the season, at the time when farmers need it the most. Usually at the beginning of the season, because we haven't sold anything, it can be the most expensive time because we're paying for equipment and seed and everything that we need, right? And so we always ask people to, join our CSA, and you can do that by going onto our website. Another thing that youth do is we do spring and winter flowers. The poinsettia season is now, so I encourage you guys to come by, even meet some of our youth. Our youth are here every weekend and sometimes even through the week. So come down, check out our plant sales, and just see what we're about. And anytime you feel like you want to take a tour or get to know us more, we're here.
I got to get myself a GoPro so I can come out and do like a virtual tour one day. Some kind of video equipment going on. So
Yeah, right.
you guys are open for tours and the plant sale, even with COVID and everything going on right now? You just got to wear a mask and all that sort of stuff?
We are. The benefits of being on a farm is you don't have to be on top of anybody.
Yeah.
So everybody is spaced out, socially distanced, which is really nice. And then, yes, we always require people to wear masks. We actually ask that if you do feel like you want to take a tour, you're welcome to stop by, but just to make sure that we're not working with youth and leaving you hanging, you can call ahead of time and say, hey, I really want to come check out the farm, and we'll just make sure somebody's here, either us or one of the youth can be here to give
So
that.
when is the sign-up window for the CSA?
You can, typically we open that up in February, but you're welcome to go on and check it out now. And then online, you can order poinsettias and Christmas flowers now.
Oh, great. So you can do like an online order for pickup?
Yes, you can, or delivery.
Or delivery, wow. It's like
we expanded COVID.
Yeah.
It was hard for people to get out, so we ended up, actually, it was hard for people to get out, right? So in the spring, we decided to do plant sales where we dropped plants and food off. So simultaneously, we would do food drops to people in the community who needed it, as well as delivering plants.
Amazing. So I feel like there's like nothing in the community that's like, you covered all the bases. I feel like the farm covers so many bases. It's amazing. Well, I really appreciate, we're at the kind of end of the time here, but I really appreciate everything that you're doing and everything that the farm is doing, and for you joining us, taking some time today to join us today to have this awesome conversation. I literally, like, every time we have a conversation, it's just like profound. I don't, there's no other word to kind of to utilize here. But every time I just like, I want to sit and think on it for a while, like every time we have a talk. So I hope everybody else got the same effect, and you all can kind of sit and think on things and support Bright Spot, support all this amazing work. Put it on your calendar now. CSA. Exactly. Go take a tour. I definitely want to take it. I'm definitely coming to get some flowers, because we're getting ready to redo the landscape in the front yard, and so I need some flowers to make it look good. So
we're here for you. We're here for you. Yeah. Thanks everybody. Thanks for having me on here. I really appreciate it. And I want to say, Dustin, like I feel the same. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Like, let's keep it going.
Right
and Mary, let's link up at some point.
Yeah, I can connect you guys. So we'll get something going. All right. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.